Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Empire. We're having a theology debate today between the Archlector here on behalf of Sigmar, and on the other side of the field we've got the Fey Enchantress representing the Lady of the Lake. So, let's see whose rhetoric is superior. Anyway, going to the builds, Demigryph Knights, Royal Alt of Gryphites, in fact, supported by the Archlector here. He's got Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Shield of Faith, and the Grand Soulfire to help protect against Grail Knights, and it also does area of effect damage as well. Over here we've got a mirror group, kind of the lower tier group with just regular Demigryph Knights with halberds, supported by a Warrior Priest. Through the front line, Spearmen with shields, a single greatsword, 2 units of Outriders, and the obligatory Jade Wizard. So for my opponent, he's got 2 mounted yeomen in each corner, 1 in each corner. Let's see, 2 units of Grail Knights, 2 units of Spearmen at Arms supporting them. In the front, more Spearmen at Arms, the Holy Wardens of La Maison-Tal, as well as a single Foot Squire. These are regiment of renown Battle Pilgrims. Used to be super popular in Total War Warhammer 1, but you don't see them too often. They're honestly pretty decent units. You might be seeing them more often on my channel, although I tend not to favor the infantry at all for Bretonnia, but still might try them out in a few battles. A couple of Peasant Arrows, one of them with Pox, the Beast Slayers of Bastogne also holding up the back line. And yeah, Fey Enchantress, of course, with, let's see, looks like Earthblood, and is that Shield of Thorns? Interesting. I guess looking to protect against some missile fire from the Empire. 1 unit of Questing Knights as well, and some Knights Errant. Without further ado, let's get the battle into full gear. You can see I'm going to be rolling out to the flank here with my Outriders. I didn't spot these sneaky mounted yeomen in the back. Thankfully, I don't have any infantry range or artillery for them to get on top of. Definitely glad about that, so I can go kind of headstrong here. We'll do okay. These Outriders going to get into position here and try and maneuver so that they can start firing at these Grail Knights. Same thing over on the other side. If we can fire at the Grail Knights or the Questing Knights, anything like that, going to be decently cost effective. Shooting at the peasants won't be the best. We did a little bit of HP damage there, but nothing substantial. But yeah, just kind of pulling up, harassing a little bit, see if we can pull my opponent apart, maybe force him to make a mistake, perhaps. And unfortunately, they are still shooting at those peasants, despite the fact that I wanted them to shoot these Questing Knights instead. Looks like maybe 1 or 2 shots landed there, not a whole lot. But meanwhile, over on this other side, we're positioning pretty aggressively. My Outriders can fire while they're moving, even though they can't fire 360. So they can, while they're advancing here and kind of chasing the Grail Knights, sort of shoot them in the back. So some pretty effective fire coming down, dropping already maybe 3 or so unit models, doing some good HP damage. This Spearman's way out of position and unbraced, so they're just going to get hammered by the Reiksguard on one side, then the Demigryph Knights on the other side, just immediately going to come in and clean them up. So yeah, these peasants being sacrificed like this, pretty rough. They are immediately going to be off the field, and we're going to then just push through and try and get on my opponent's cavalry without him getting the charge. Obviously, if we can get the charge on these Grail Knights, my Demigryph Knights with halberds will win decisively. They would probably win anyway, just with the buffs from the Warrior Priest, but we are going to get in on the side here. Holy buffs of Sigmar being dropped to counter the blessings of the Lady here. So yeah, Hammer of Sigmar, Shield of Faith, Soulfire, all that jazz. You can see over on this other side, Outriders maneuvering away from those Grail Knights, and again, we're going to catch these Grail Knights on the side with the Royal Alt of Gryphites, and pretty much rinse and repeat exactly the same. Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Shield of Faith, and the Grand Soulfire to give them that 90% magic resistance. So if you can see here, I don't actually have the unit card up, but you can see those Royal Alt of Gryphites did have that 90% magic resistance while that Grand Soulfire is up. Meanwhile, Outriders taking a few pot shots. Infantry engagements just about get underway here, but we were able to rout off those Knights Errant and the unit of Grail Knights over on this side, dropping an Earthblood as well to help keep everyone healed up. Then immediately going to drop the Cav Death Blob here, sort of into an alpha strike on these Foot Squires, and immediately follow up with some infantry, get the infantry engagement underway. I mean, obviously State Troop Spearmen will beat Spearmen at Arms, but it's going to be a wet noodle contest. They'll be slugging it out for quite some time. Meanwhile, the Reiksguard are going to get up and around the flank here and charge straight into the Holy Wardens. Unfortunately, the Questing Knights are there to meet them, so very well played by my opponent there. Getting the Questing Knights, they will trade very well against the Reiksguard in sustained combat. Not so much on the charge, but especially in sustained combat. Meanwhile, the Royal Altar Fights and Archlector getting bogged down here by spears. We were able to beat back those Grail Knights pretty effectively. They did just come back from Terror Route, but yeah, a lot of spears over on this side supporting for Bretonnia, so we're going to have to be careful. That being said, the balance power has already shifted in my favor with us winning that cav engagement so decisively. Granted, my Reiksguard have taken quite a bit of damage from the Spearmen-at-Arms in the front line, and these Great Swords are going to start trading with the Beast Slayers of Baston here, and some very nice missile support from my opponent, especially the poison means that it's actually going to be a pretty even trade, whereas the Great Swords would normally win this pretty handily. Unfortunately, they are going to lose out there this time. But meanwhile, we're pushing over to the other side here, trying to make sure our Outriders stay protected from these mounted yeomen. My opponent's doing a very good job kind of pursuing, continuously trying to get on my Outriders here. Thankfully, they're fast enough to usually pull away, and then we can bring in the other cav support to see off those mounted yeomen. So definitely in my favor so far, and Earthblood being dropped over here, trying to keep those Royal Altar Fights and the Archlector on station. You can see, unfortunately, both of them pretty bogged down here, especially the Archlector doesn't have the best mass, so you got to be careful that he doesn't get surrounded like that. But one more pitched cavalry engagement coming over here with the Holy Wardens of La Maison Taha looking absolutely awesome in this combat with their hammers and their swords. But Empire, of course, bringing the hammer truly as they do with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Shield of Faith, Grand Soulfire going down, all that jazz. Once again, it's also going to help negate the Mortis Engine effect from the Enchantress, the Mist of the Lady there. The Grand Soulfire in particular will help mitigate that, and the Grand Shield of Faith as well. But yeah, you can see we're pushing on over to the other side to clean up the last of the Grail Knights here. Unfortunately, these Spearmen, although they are in a good position to support, just can't hold up their leadership to the terror of the Royal Altar Fights, so they're going to get terrified away. And very soon it's going to be rough stuff for the Bretonnians here. You can see Questing Knights trying to get on these Outriders that are right next to them, but we're just going to push the Outriders up and away and shoot those Knights Errant in the back as we're running away. And just so happens that the positioning works out. So yeah, you can see some of the Questing Knights actually get catching up there as the Outriders pop off a volley there. But yeah, at this point, not too much longer for Bretonnia. Spearmen winning on various pockets, although my Great Swords did lose out there, unfortunately, to the Holy Wardens, or sorry, the Beast Slayers. But then the Outriders were able to get some effective fire in. Finally, my Outriders are going to shoot this gap here and get onto these Peasant Archers and shut them down. Enchantress still fighting here, but she is getting hunted by the Demi Squad now, since there's no mobility to really contest them. The Archlector, you know, he's got his book of scriptures. He's trying to bring his word of faith to the Enchantress here. And clearly, his argument is very powerful, because the forces of the Empire are victorious today in the good old theological debate slash jousting contest, if you want to call it that. But anyway, fun stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Yeah, the Archlector and the Warrior Priest, both very, very useful in this particular matchup in supporting Demigryph Knights. You saw both units of Demis, besides the fact that I got the charge off, which in and of itself will usually allow Demis to beat Grail Knights. You had the buffs on top of that, giving the magic resistance, overall damage resistance, and the melee attack, of course, which is very important. And we just absolutely dumped on these Grail Knights. They really did not pay out at all, which ended up being my opponent's downfall. You can see, other than that, he actually did quite well. Losing out those Foot Squires was a little rough too, but both regiment of down infantry definitely holding their own weight. Trading Great Swords with Beast Slayers, Bastion is not exactly what you want, but they did okay. Granted, it would have been probably better to, like, if these two had been switched in their positioning, and the Beast Slayers had been able to get involved in that heavy cav fight, whereas the Holy Wardens probably should have fought the infantry instead. But, you know, that's just how the engagement unfolds sometimes. Knights Errant also kind of got taken out there pretty hard, but the Questing Knights, on the other hand, 72 kills, a lot of those coming against Reiksguard. You can see my one unit of Reiksguard that charged in on that side definitely performed pretty poorly. I definitely like the pick of Questing Knights here. They're kind of a good Swiss Army knife cav. They're not necessarily so good on the charge, but they can do well in sustained combat. The only issue you're going to face is, of course, armor-piercing missile fire. They don't have a missile block chance like the other knights do, so they will take a bit more damage, although in general you don't want to be taking gunfire from the Empire. So, yeah, in terms of this army, one of the units of Reichsguard, 105 kills, pretty decent. The Great Swords definitely got out-traded. That was pretty rough. Outriders getting some pretty decent kills and also just kind of forcing my opponent into some awkward engagements there. So that's one of the reasons why I bring Missile Cav a lot of the time. Even just one or two groups can sometimes force your opponent to make mistakes, and that in and of itself can be enough sometimes to win the battle. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. It's a pretty fun battle, pretty good matchup. I do think it's a little bit in favor of the Empire currently, but Bretonnia can definitely bring a lot to the table. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Who would you favor in the theological debate, or perhaps you would say a clash of kings instead if you took like Lewin versus Karl Franz or something like that. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.